So what would you say was your biggest challenge as a math major and your biggest takeaways?
Biggest challenge, I don't know if you'll agree or not, was topology.
Yeah, 100%.
I use it all the time in class when I'm like, this isn't topology.
Yeah. Could be worse.
Could be worse. I really struggled with the proofwriting. I think it was very rewarding to be able to prove something, but I still kind of feel like, looking back, like, could I have ever made those connections on my own? There's a part to productive struggling, and I think we did a lot of that in topology with proofwriting, but there's also something to getting help and being able to, there's a difference between productive struggling and, unproductive struggling, where you've kind of hit a wall and you cannot get forward because you're kind of at this like mental block. And maybe if I had 10 years, I could sit and think about it enough to get somewhere. But when you're in a class setting, you can't do that. And so it's really helpful to be able to have the amazing professors that we had, and amazing fellow students that we had. You could go to them and you could be like, look, I've gotten this. And they were really good about giving you like little hints, giving you kind of the next step, and then you could get to the next ones from there. Because I look back and I'm like, I could never have done any of that on my own. So I guess that was kind of the biggest struggle, is trying to think through stuff, and feeling that inadequacy of, I can't do this on my own. I can't think through something. I'm not someone who can just come up with stuff. I have to be told. And once I'm told, I get it. But I can't come up with it on my own. Why would I do that? Yeah. I think that's still a big struggle of mine when I hit sort of a roadblock. How am I going to teach this to my students, where I think, well, I still have that tendency to go back to thinking I'm not good enough. But then I can remember, the takeaway from math of, things are hard, but there are resources out there to help you, and you can do it. But I think the community is probably the biggest takeaway, is like there is a community out there. And I think we all kind of enjoyed, by the time we got to the higher math classes, where really there's like 10 of us in a room. Yeah. And you can all look at each other and be like, we did this. Yeah. Like, we did something really hard and we did it.
Yeah. And we were bonded in our struggle. Yes. Brothers in arms.
It really felt more like a brothers in arms situation. Yeah. And so I love building that community for my students now, that we did something hard and we can do it together.
Awesome.
Having that motivation.
Yeah.
What about you? What is your biggest takeaway, I guess, from being a math major?
I had very similar like struggles to yours. I think that's why we got along so well, is we like think about things really similarly, even if we have like different backgrounds. But very different. But it was such a struggle for me to face not being able to fix it by myself. Like, anytime I had a problem, not being able to fix it by myself. And that's kind of true for me in life in general. Like, that's just my personality, is I want to be able to do it all myself, and I don't want to ask for any help. I'm a very independent person, and I think some of that came from like being homeschooled, where you are doing it all yourself. Yeah, you're very much an individual, like you're sort of an island. And so that's how I was treating college. And that was kind of reinforced by being a commuter student too. As I was living at home and driving 35 minutes to college, I would do the classes, get those done, and then for the first couple of years, I was touring with the family band while doing college too. So like, you just wanted to get home and like work on your other stuff. So I was really doing the lone wolf approach and thinking that if I couldn't figure it all out by myself, then there was something wrong with me. So like I mentioned earlier, imposter syndrome like reigned supreme in my head, and I would just get inordinately upset pretty quickly, like working on homework, because I think too I had a false perception, because the first couple classes I was familiar with material because I'd done it in high school, even though I hadn't done it well, and it felt easier because now I had these great professors that were explaining it super well. And I already had the advantage. Like I had an advantage over the other kids because I just had been exposed to the material, even though I sucked at it. So it was almost like my second time through. And then when I got to the courses that stepped outside of that completely, and it was like bye-bye everything that I know. Like, you're learning, I think one of the first ones that was like that was linear algebra, which is like, it's like learning a whole new language. Like, the first few homework sets, they're like, what are you even asking me? Like, I don't understand.
I don't know what this means.
And that was like a whole new thing, was how to engage with that material that feels so foreign to me, that I've never even touched anything like it before. I don't even know how to answer the problems. And so I had to go from like literally crying over my homework at home, you know, and just immense frustration to like, Samantha, you're gonna need to like actually go ask for help. Like, there are such things as office hours. I was telling Morgan before the camera started, I didn't go to office hours for like the first couple like years of college, literally. Wow. Yeah. I you know, I might have sent a couple emails to like ask a few clarifying questions, but like office hours, like going, sitting down and working through things, barely ever did any of that. And then I think it was linear algebra that I started, Dr. Fusilier, I started going to his office hours a lot and working through some things. And then really, once we got to topology is when I experienced like, oh, you need to basically live in office hours. Like, you need to do like a lot of your homework with your professor and have things, y'all need to talk through things. And that was a big takeaway for me, is learning how to work with somebody else and talk about stuff that you can barely solidify in your own mind to even get the words out. Like, it really puts you in a different mindset about, you just need to start talking and like engaging and trying to sort of get your mind around the subject. And it usually tends to sort of pull out what you do and don't know. Whereas I was always used to, I need to have everything ready before time. Like, I need to have it all together. I've been a perfectionist my whole life. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? So and that's what bonded Morgan and I, we would end up either in office hours together at the same time, or we were texting each other. We had group texts where a bunch of people in the classes were texting each other. And we really just all started to help each other out. And Morgan and I found out we had a lot in common, and like are from like not far down the road from each other and everything. We have a similar accent, so that's actually how we started talking to each other. Is I went, "Are you from North Carolina?" So I was like, "I recognize your accent."
How did you know?
Yeah. Y'all come back now here. So that was a big takeaway. Is like, you mentioned this earlier, maybe it was in the last video. There's such a group element to math, which I did not realize. That's another reason I think why I chose it, is that I did not like group projects, like just the ones that they give you in like your general, like your gen ed classes. They drove me crazy because they were so like, they were just like going through the motions type of thing. Yeah, in the non-math courses. And being perfectionists, we were like, we'll take over all the responsibilities. We'll do all the group stuff ourselves. And then, so I thought math was avoiding all that. And actually, that's where I worked with people the most, is because we needed each other. Like, because one of us would understand something that the other person didn't. I always felt like it was Morgan that understood it, and I didn't.
It was totally you.
I was like, I'm asking Morgan for help too often. She's going to think I'm like mooching off of her.
In class, I'd be like, oh, she's asking another clarifying question because she already understands.
No, I'm just over there like trying not to cry in the middle of the class.
Or like you daydream for half a second. You're
yes,
like, no.
Yes. Where was I? Oh yeah,
I've forgotten everything.
That was a big problem for me. My saving grace was that my hand would sort of like automatically write the notes anyway. Like whatever you had on the board, I would still sort of take them, but my head could be somewhere else. But yeah, just learning how to actually ask for help and learn that literally is part of the process, and that's not a sign that you're a bad student. It's actually a sign that you're a good student, that you recognize that you have a problem. And you'll get help for it. It's kind of like counseling, which is really good too. Mental health. There's actually a lot of like interconnectedness between like education in general and mental health, but like being a math student and mental health. My professors really, there were a couple of them in particular that really shed light on what it means to be an academic in the true sense of the word. Like, you're not just pushing through your school day to survive, but learning how to like really engage with the material and not be like totally distraught by running into difficulties. Because I had professors tell me, yeah, it makes me feel stupid too. And the higher you get in your education, like you get to like grad school and your doctorate, the dumber you feel. And I think it was Dr. Fusilier that said that. And when he said that, I was like, that just shattered my worldview, because I thought the people that did that were the ones that it just like, they loved math, like they dreamt about math in their spare time. You know what I mean? Like that was what they,
and realizing that even when you get to like grad school, I think I remember Mrs. Dr. Fusilier talking about that, where like you still feel inadequate sometimes. Like you look at other people who feel like they're getting it easier.
Yes.
And so there's always this perception, negative almost, around yourself when you're a math student.
Yeah.
And I think that may possibly come from our perfectionism. Just a little maybe.
Yeah.
It also comes from the idea of, just because maybe you get something someone else doesn't get, like it's okay to be an individual, and it's okay to have to ask questions and do that working together.
Exactly. Yeah, and like when you differ on what you got, then you can like you have to interact and learn how to like.
Yeah, you have to see it as a positive and like a asset, I guess, instead of as something that is negative that you don't get it. Think of it as a positive that you get something someone else doesn't, and think of something you don't.
Exactly.
You bounce off each other. It's a great environment.
Yeah, it really was. Like that's when I started to have a sense of community at High Point. What, like you said, talking about community and that being a big takeaway is like, it really was bonding to be in those harder classes together.
Yes.
Both semesters of our senior year. I was in, I guess you had finished your math major at that point. I was in a class with, it wasn't as hard, but it was more about like applications and stuff. But the semester before that was my hardest class of all time that you were into, which is abstract algebra.
Oh gosh, yes.
That was like, topology was really hard, but abstract algebra to me, for some reason, I found just as challenging.
Oh,
nope. Yeah. No,
see, I thought topology was light years harder.
Well, and it was weirder. Topology was definitely weirder.
It was just, I just can't. I guess because you're so creative, you can wrap your head around the weird.
I couldn't. I
can't. I look at it and I'm like, that's weird. I don't get it.
Yeah, or like the, what is it, the Klein bottle?
Yes.
Yeah, like the one that has no like ending, like there's no... Yeah.
And then you get like knots, and of course we're doing all of this in the middle of COVID.
Yes, that was the other thing, is that we had to learn how to like adapt, because COVID happened during our hardest course, was topology, which was like a 4,000 level course. It was basically a grad school level course, I think is what Dr. Fusler said, or at least really close.
Close.
And you had to learn in a whole new way how to adapt, because we were already learning how to adapt to challenges as math students. And then COVID literally hit during our spring break. So we went home, like COVID sort of being in the news, but I remember being like, it's not gonna get to us. Like it might be.
I remember being like a second week of spring break.
Yeah, they were like, y'all stay home for another week. And it was like,
I was at the beach and I was like,
sure.
I don't have to, I'm gonna have a whole week to get stuff done and work on that. I think it was math history project or something that we were doing at the same time.
Yes.
Before going back.
Yeah, and then they were like, no, you're not coming back this semester. Everything's online. And so I think we basically were able to take our math, the things that we learned from math about being adaptable.
Definitely adaptable.
Yeah.
You had to be. I got, at that point, I was so used to working in the math classrooms that I didn't feel like I was capable of doing a math problem that was not on the whiteboard. Like I was like, I have to stand up and I have to write on my whiteboard to be able to like put all the pieces together, and the proofwritings would sometimes take an entire whiteboard. And so I was like, I need this. So my dad created a whiteboard for me in our basement so that I could have one. It's just like, I mean, it wasn't a real whiteboard. It was just like covered, this like wooden thing covered in plastic. It was able barely to write, but it worked. You had to learn how to solve problems quickly.
Oh my gosh. And I think like if anything, the switch to online like highlighted like how we were really engaging with really hard things and had accomplished a lot. Like, I don't know if you have this experience, but like scanning in, like we had Adobe Scan, and that's how we would scan in our tests and stuff. And you'd have like, it would be like a 12-page test of like all writing, like handwritten proofwriting. And it really highlighted to me like just how much work I had put into it. And that really helps with imposter syndrome, when you can kind of look at your work and see like.
I agree. I think too it helped, because I did not live at home. I was at college, and so not that necessarily my family didn't know how hard I was working, but I think it helped being at home and being like, okay, the sun's up, I'm headed downstairs, and I'll come back, when you guys are all in the bed, kind of thing. Where I think we all kind of realized how hard it actually was to work through this kind of stuff, and how much of a life I didn't have.
Exactly. I think that was the big eye opener for me, is being isolated at home felt no different.
I really was like, and I'm kind of I consider myself to be an introvert anyway most of the time. So if I'm being honest, a lot of it was not different, and I didn't really notice much of a difference until after. after the school year was over and now
Yeah.
it's summer and you can't do anything. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is different.
And I think that's one of the things that we can help everybody with on the YouTube channel is we can kind of help them avoid some of the pitfalls that we had where we didn't have lives. Because I think.
Yes, I don't know about you, but I so regret it.
Me too, yeah.
I mean, the 4.0, great, but at the same time, I wish I had allowed myself that freedom.
Oh, yeah.
And been able to balance better, because I think that really was, for me, a lack of balancing. And I think you did a much better job balancing because you had to. You had so many other things you were responsible for.
I really did. I mean, I had some early on, some here and there touring with the band, but it really did become like that was basically my life, like after a certain point, because we retired the band in 2018, which was like my sophomore year. But yeah, that was literally all I did every day. And I think like it's really a phrase that's really stood out to me from different study experts is work smarter, not harder. And that's kind of what we've accumulated a lot of ways to do that during our time. And I think if we're able to give you that as you're starting college or as you're starting high school or during that time, then you can kind of save a lot of time gathering that for yourself and actually go do some things every now and then.
Find the balance. Our college, High Point, is incredible and has so many opportunities for students on campus that I went to some things. I mean, I wasn't, completely.
I think I did.
We did have other classes and things.
I think the only things I did were like with you. Like you got me to go to the improv comedy show.
Yeah. So there are some things that I'm glad I forced myself to go and do. But I wish I had done a little bit more. I think college is the time where you really develop some deep friendships. Like I think I could say we have developed deep friendships.
I was at her wedding and everything.
Oh, yes.
It was beautiful. It made me cry.
Oh my gosh.
So that's sort of, our stories, and we can relate to you and your mathematical journey. We have very different journeys, but a lot of the same things came out, and that really bonded the two of us. And we want to, like Morgan said, do the same thing for you and build that sense of community, make friends in the comments of these YouTube videos.
You're going to find your friends here.
Yes. We'll all do math together. But yeah, so if you have any questions just about what you want to see on this channel, as we mentioned in our first video, please put it in the comments, like and subscribe to this channel. Share this with your friends, whoever you're working with at school and y'all are commiserating about how hard things are. Or, and we've talked a lot about the people that are here because they're struggling. You might be here because you love math and you just want some help with different things, or you just genuinely love math and want to engage with mathematical material. So whoever you are, you're welcome here, and we appreciate you. And you do add to this this process, because it is
this community that we're hoping to create.
Yeah. Universal group work, that's what we're shooting for. So a lot of smart people unite. So because the smart people, really what it comes down to is smart people are people who care and who try and who get help and who just work who work towards their goals. That's what it means to be a smart person, not that you were born with some natural ability to ace everything without breaking a sweat. That's not what that is. So
no, I think we can both agree. We absolutely both believe that every student is capable of learning. And I try to show that in my classroom, and I want to show it here, that there's nothing you can't do. With math. There's not something that's too big, a mountain too big for you to climb with math on it. We absolutely are here to kind of be your tour guides, be the person helping show you how to get from point A to point B, and show you that there isn't any wall blocking you from getting there. There's
no mystery. It seems like there's a mystery to math, but there's not. It's logical. So it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes using all the pieces and connecting them logically.
That's really true.
It's not that it's some unknowable concept. It's just that the dots haven't been connected yet, and we're here to help you with that. I'm Watson, you're Holmes. We take turns. We take turns. Watson and Holmes. Watson-Holmes.
No, but we really are genuinely so thankful to be able to have a place now where we can share these ideas with you guys, and we're grateful that you're here, and excited to get started on this journey with you guys. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon.
We are numberkind.